welcome to the West Hill Community Association meeting. My name is Holly Megan Thompson. I am the proud principal of Lakeridge Elementary, where we are hosting our meeting tonight. It's an honor to have you here. We're so glad to have you, especially on this cold night. I am here if you have any questions. Restrooms are right outside the hall. And without further ado, I will hand it over to once an Orca, always an Orca, Finn Harmony.
All right, thank you, Principal Thompson. It's great to be back here. So I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know about a few upcoming events, and then I will turn it over to folks giving community reports. And I'm also really excited about our main presenters this evening. So once again, I'm Finn Harmony. I am the community leader for the West Hill Community Association. We put on these quarterlies 4 times a year. It's a chance for neighbors, residents to hear updates about what's going on, ask questions, provide comments or feedback. And so just to let you know about upcoming events, we have a restoration and stewardship event at Skyway Park in partnership with King County Parks Saturday, January 20th. That's this weekend from 9 to 12 p.m. We'll be planting some things in an area we cleared blackberry from last time. We have a community coffee hour at Skyway Library February 17th, and that is from 11:30 to 1 p.m. And then the library is also hosting a Protect Yourself from Fraud and Identity Theft that same day starting at 2 p.m. So if any of these pique your interest, we'd love to see you there. And without further ado, I will turn it over to community reports. And I'm not sure I see Cynthia from Skyway Water Sewer, so we can move on to David. Are you ready? Sure. Okay, I'll pull up your slide. Just give me a second.
And where's our West Hill board members while we're here? Joel, Rahul, I'm Devin. So come talk to us if you have any interest in getting involved, volunteering or donating. We love the help.
Devin, I might need some help.
Oh.
Go back to the home. Second reason. Okay. You're ready.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is David Lee. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for King County Parks. I'm also the supervisor for the mobile engagement team. So over the summer, if you're out in the parks and you see like a big green and blue King County Parks van handing out a bunch of free stuff, that's usually me and my team. So if you see us, please don't be afraid. Come up, get some free stuff. I did want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we have up and coming. Thank you, Finn, for mentioning the upcoming volunteer opportunity. Our volunteer program is great. They do a lot of really good stuff in the parks, a lot of restoration work. So if you really want to come out and learn about parks and work with some great people with King County Parks and restoring, in this instance, Skyway, please come out and join us. That's going to be January 20th, and should be a link. I don't know if you have it anywhere for the registration, but you can register on our volunteer portal at King County Parks. Some other stuff that we have going on is what we call land acquisitions. If you're not familiar with land acquisitions, essentially a land acquisition is looking at potential open space. So expanding the extent of park spaces and conservation spaces, which is really important if you consider a number of different things. One of which is corridors for wildlife, playable areas for children, places where you can go walk your dogs. Obviously, we have Skyway Park here, which is a big footprint, but we're always trying to get more land. We're always trying to expand on that to give more public space and to give opportunity for people to learn about the natural spaces that we have. So 2 of our open space program managers, Rusty Milhund and Sarah Brandt, are right here. So if you have any ideas about land acquisition, maybe there's a piece of property, a parcel, a tract that you're interested in, and you're like, well, that would make an amazing park. let's make it into a dog walk or something to that extent. Please reach out to these two. I just talked to them earlier today. They want to hear back from everybody, so please feel free to connect with them via email or phone. Also wanted to update folks on the King County Park Rec Aids, which are out of our White Center area. So they're part of our teen program, which is a really extensive program. They do a lot of great stuff in the community. And they're actually currently packing up winter-themed arts and crafts goodie bags for the Skyway Resource Center distribution, which is going to be held this Friday, January 19th from 3 to 5 at the Skyway Fire Station. So please feel free to swing by. There's going to be a lot of free stuff being handed out, a lot of useful stuff, but the King County Park Rec Aids are going to have games, so if you want to keep your kids occupied, please go ahead and bring them over there, drop them off. They'll go ahead and run them through a bunch of games and activities. More than happy to. So anyway, that's pretty much all I've got. Any questions? Yes, sir?
There's one question that came across online from a leak bats. It was, is there any way to make space under the transmission lines usable for the community?
I think that actually is an easement. And so there's a certain set of priorities that have to be reviewed, and I'm assuming that's the power lines we're talking about, right? So, that's something that we actually do have some control over, but I'm not sure to the extent of new land acquisitions in that regard. Like if the individual is asking about purchasing new land under those lines and that easement, that's a different set of arrangements than what we already currently have at Skyway Park.
Yeah, I think it was more in regards to making it usable, maybe like in Seattle, with walking paths.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. My recommendation, if you want to know about that kind of stuff for land acquisitions, please just reach out to Rusty or Sarah, and they'll be able to answer all of your questions. They're great people. They really want to hear back from the community, and they want to try to get y'all what you're looking for as far as park spaces and trails. So please reach out. Don't hesitate. Any other questions? Yeah.
Regarding the dog, is there any plan at all for big dog park in the Skyway Park area?
So I've heard that there's another dog park already in the area. It's municipal though. So we do unincorporated park spaces, right? But I think that there is a dog walk somewhere in the area. I'm not exactly sure where, but there has been a lot of discussion about it, and it's just a question of land acquisition, really. So you gotta, again, reach out to them. I don't do land acquisitions. I wish I was that savvy, but they'd be able to talk to you about arrangements, contracts, any of the other ideas or operations that we're working on already. We might already have something on the books, so, yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
All right. CSO Vickie and Detective Norris, are you ready? Okay. Just for any folks presenting coming up, if you can repeat the question if it comes from Joel in the back, he's monitoring comments on Facebook where it's live streamed. So just so that the camera hears it, repeat the question.
Perfect.
Thank you. Do you want me to do your next slide?
I can do it.
You can do it? Okay.
Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and braving the cold. We at Skyway, King County Sheriff's Office, the storefront right across from the library, guess what we don't have? Heat. Ah! Oh, sorry. So if I start doing this, don't worry, I'm okay. I'm just still thawing out. Working on it though. It'll be fixed soon. So again, thank you so much for coming out and braving the cold. We want to start with the most important thing that we're doing next month, which is me, because I'm the community service officer. So I think all the community events are the most important. So
Coffee with a cup.
there you go. So we're going to do that in February. That's our first slide. Whoops. It's going to be at Winnie's Cafe down on Rainier Avenue. So she makes a really mean cup of joe. So come on down and meet her if you haven't already. Also, law enforcement will be there. Our bosses will be there. If there's something you want to see in your community, this is a great opportunity for you to meet some of our leadership team. and also the deputies that serve Skyway. It is a choice. People do in the sheriff's office have a choice about sort of where they want to work to some degree. Sometimes it's need-based, and so we get placed where we are needed. But we are making a choice to be in Skyway, and so it's kind of really cool in my opinion that you want to meet those people who are making this their choice. Again, ask all the questions you want. Anything you've ever wanted to ask a law enforcement officer, that's a really great opportunity. There will be free donuts, and the coffee, again, is fabulous because Winnie makes it. So we're going to move on to something that's new for the King County Sheriff's Office is we're going to start putting out stats, if you will. We're going to have a dashboard, basically, that tells you all of the things that are happening all around King County, as much or as little as you want to know. So what I sort of did is just sort of a little tutorial on how this works. If you just go to the King County Sheriff's website, so you put in kingcounty.gov and then you put in sheriff, you can even just Google King County Sheriff, this will pop up. This is sort of the generic page on what, everything you can do on that page. But if you click on the King County Sheriff's Office crime maps, which I think they could have named it better, but hey, I'm not in charge. This comes up, whoops, should say crime data. There's a list of all the towns. So if you want to know what's going on in Woodinville, feel free to click on Woodinville. But I think you probably want to know what's going on in Skyway. So if you click on that,
Southwest Precinct.
the Southwest Precinct is what we are part of. That also includes Vashon Island, White Center, and obviously Skyway. So some of the things to know about this page, good things to read, is this is not official crime statistics. This is what's been allowed to be released. So if a case is closed, if there's a situation that maybe you heard about, well, my next door neighbor's house was burglarized, it's not on here. It's probably still being investigated, and so they can't release information until the court proceedings are done. So it's not going to be a complete representation of what's going on in the community, but it's going to give you some insights. And the way to be specific on the area, first we have to say our disclaimer. Again, not official crime stats.
You want to read the whole disclaimer?
But that's on the page. Again, just read the fine print because, again, if you think, well, my neighbor's house was burglarized, that's why I wouldn't be there. This is for the month right now, so these numbers are accurate as of today. Every day this page updates in the morning. So things that are releasable will be released in the morning. So this is just for the month so far. So you can see our dots. Some dots are a little bit bigger. That represents 9 incidents. The little white dot over there, I think, is 3 incidents. So if it's a white dot, it's 3. But the way to do it, to make it so you take it away from Vashon and White Center, is you have to use these little zoom controls, and you zoom in to your area, and that's when Skyway would be highlighted. Once you highlight Skyway, then you want to figure out what the crime is that happened near your house. You have to hit the little button. So again, I'm not really good about making my arrows match up. But so if I clicked on that little button, this is what would pop up. It was a motor vehicle theft. It was a case on that date at that place. It'll give you the case number. It won't tell you anybody's names. It won't give you the exact address. It'll be sort of a range, but it'll be in the area. We are trying to protect people's privacy. Obviously, that's very important to us, and we don't want to give out information that would, potentially harm anybody. So this is what you'll get, but there is something called FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. So if there was something more you wanted to know about this case, you have the right to put in a request to FOIA, and you can highlight that case number, and then you would learn more about what happened in that incident, if you're so inclined. So that is a little tutorial on it. It gives you a ton of information just about all the things that are going on. I hope you all know that we are at the storefront. I drive the really fancy blue minivan. Never driven a minivan in my life until this job, but all right. So I got the mom van. And if you see that van, it means I'm in the office. If you see any of the detectives or deputies' cars in front, that means somebody's there. Don't hesitate to knock on the door. We're happy to answer questions. We're happy to help you in any way or anything you might think you need that we can help with. We're happy to help. And Detective Norris is our storefront detective. So his is, tell us what you do, Mike.
Oh, so I do whatever Vickie tells me to do. No, anything on the criminal side I usually deal with. If there's like a problem area, or if we'll have neighbors call in and say, hey, this is going on in my neighborhood at this time. I'll figure out a way to resolve that. Talk to who I need to talk to in order to put us in a better position so that we can stop it. We do a lot of house checks for people who are out of town, so that way we know.
Does everyone know what house checks are? No?
So
Okay,
if
house
people
checks,
if
yeah.
people are going out of town, they'll notify us and say that they want us to check on their residences. So a lot of times that will be helpful to us because we'll know when no one is supposed to be there, and we'll know if someone is trying to break in and things of that nature, because that has happened several times.
And so when I do house checks, the most recent things I've had is people have left town and then their Amazon packages get delivered. So no crime, luckily for me, and then a tree went down at someone's house and they weren't aware. So some of it is not necessarily crime driven, but it can be that just another set of eyes on your property. Obviously, we don't go into the property or into the house, we only go around the property. So again, checking for closed doors, and if you tell me that the white Chevy Suburban is supposed to be there, great, then I know that. If there's a black Chevy Suburban, well, now that's a car that's not supposed to be there, and I can call and alert whoever needs to know that.
And outside of the criminal stuff, we try to bridge the gap between the community and the police. So we are at a ton of events at schools. We're trying to get into the churches.
Yep.
So any events that you guys have, any small businesses opening up, please let us know. We'd love to participate in anything you guys got going on.
Neighborhood parties, we like a party.
We've done that too.
We'll come to your barbecues. But again, don't ever hesitate. If there's something that you think we can help you with, we're happy to do that. So please, no question is dumb, no question is beneath us. So does anyone have any questions tonight?
Yes, sir.
How does one submit a house check request these days?
Ooh.
You can do it, yeah. You can come into the storefront, or if you send me an email, I'll send you the paper form. It is online, but it's a little bit tricky to find, but it's just called a house check form.
So do you do the paper form still?
There is a paper form if you want that one, or you can do it online.
Do they
I
still
can-
accept the paper forms
At the storefront.
fire station? Just
At the storefront, yeah.
Okay.
If you took it to the fire station, they'd probably get it to us.
They used to take them,
So the
Yeah.
paper form is best for us, so that way, instead of it just being us that knows, it's everyone who works the area knows, because we'll leave it hanging up. So anyone who's on duty is familiar with what's going on. So we prefer the paper version.
paper form to storefront.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Of course.
Anyone got any other questions?
Comment on Facebook. We love the sheriff van, smiley face.
Awesome.
It's Khadijah.
Thanks, Khadijah. Again, just know that we are here and we are, hoping to serve this community. So let us serve. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
guys.
Okay, next up we've got Randy Matheson, who is the Executive Director of Community Relations with the Renton School District and also helped us to be able to be here this evening. So thank you, Randy, for always making that happen.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Randy Matheson, Executive Director of Community Relations in your Renton School District. I've got a couple of programs I want to share with you tonight. New programs that we're instituting at elementary schools, and then I'll give a quick update about Renton High School, which is the high school where all the students here on the West Hill Skyway matriculate into high school. So first, we have two new elementary school programs coming up that we're really excited about. Both of these start at in the new school year in the fall. The first one is a Spanish language class. So we're opening a new English-Spanish language class. We're starting in kindergarten. This class will open at Talbot Hill Elementary School. And each year we'll open a new class, so kindergarten, first grade, second grade, on up to fifth grade. And what this will be, it will be a classroom where half of the students speak Spanish, half speak English. The teacher is a Spanish-speaking teacher, English-Spanish-speaking teacher, and she will teach students in both English and Spanish for that year. They'll learn languages, they'll get to know each other, they'll learn cultures. We're pretty excited about this. This is our first opportunity to start these new sort of language immersion classes. And again, each year we'll add an additional class. So kindergarten starts this coming fall, Talbot Hill Elementary School. It is open to all students all elementary school students in our district. We're kindergarten for this first year. And for the subsequent years, it'll be open to all families also. It'll remain at Talbot Hill Elementary School until we get to the fifth grade, and then we'll figure out whether or not we want to start instituting something like this at additional schools throughout the district. But it is an opportunity to grow languages in our district, grow cultural awareness, and really have a new opportunity for families to sort of get to know their own communities and the communities in which they live. The second program, also an elementary school program, which is going to be at all of our elementary schools to include the 3 here on the West Hill, and that's Campbell Hill, Bryn Mawr, Campbell Hill, and Lakeridge, is going to be our new Ready K program. It's a program like kindergarten for four-year-olds. So right now our kindergarten programs start at 5-year-old, right? So we have a preschool program in our district that's at, there is one at Campbell Hill around the corner from here, and then one at our Meadowcrest Early Learning Center. That's preschool, that's for 3 and 4-year-olds. Beginning next year, every elementary school in our district will have a program available to students who are kids who are 4 years old called Ready K. And again, that prepares students in a lot of ways. It prepares young students, 4-year-olds, to be better prepared to enter kindergarten through math and language. Some of the things that we'll be focused on are essential academics, social emotional skills, and other things that are important for students, kids at 4 years old. A lot of our families are pretty excited about this because daycare is pretty expensive, and daycare doesn't have highly qualified teachers like we do in the district helping 4-year-olds start to learn what learning is really about. This program will follow the same hours as the school it's in, and it'll follow the same calendar as the Renton School District's calendar, right? So it's a sort of a program between preschool and kindergarten called Ready K for 4-year-olds to get them ready for success as they move on through elementary school. So those are our 2 new programs that start this fall that we're really excited about. We're communicating these to parents now and beyond parents to community members who have children in the district and enrolling real soon for both of these programs. The last thing I'll talk to you tonight about is our process to continue to expand and rebuild Renton High School. In 2022, we went out to voters and we asked for voter support in building a new Renton High School. If you know Renton High, it sits down on 2nd Avenue right now, or 2nd Street right now, downtown Renton. It serves the kids here in this area. It is a wonderful school. We maintain it well. We've been maintaining it over more than 100 years. But it's a small footprint. It's much smaller than the other high schools in our district, and it doesn't accommodate all of the things that other high schools do for our high school students. So we ask voters to support our efforts to actually expand that school, that footprint, to build a bigger site. We started looking for property outside of downtown Renton within our district, and for 2 years we went through that process of trying to find a piece of property big enough to build a new high school. High schools usually sit on 30 to 33 acres of property. As you can imagine, that's pretty difficult to find. So our plan now is to expand the footprint of the current Renton High School. We're going to move we're starting to work with homeowners and business owners around the school right now to purchase property and expand the footprint from its current location from 2nd Street on through the community up to Airport Way, and then from Logan to Shattuck. So that sort of big block area is what we're looking at now. We're working with, as I said, we're working with homeowners and business owners right now to purchase land and property to expand the footprint, and we hope to start building in the next couple of years once all of that property acquisition has taken place. So a lot of new exciting things happening in the Renton School District, specifically for families and students here on this hill. Yes, ma'am?
What's going to happen to the original building?
Good question. The question is, what's going to happen to the original building? We will leave the original building, which is the front-facing building and the Performing Arts Center, the IKEA Performing Arts Center. We will leave that intact, and everything else beyond that in the back onto that new property is where we're going to build. So we're committed to keeping that 100-year-old building as intact as we can and making use of it, but building the new classrooms
I've
beyond.
been very worried of it. I have 3 generations graduate of Renton High in my family. So.
We're committed to keeping that building, the facade of that building in place. Yes, ma'am.
2 questions. Are there not still concerns about native heritage rights?
Yes, there are. There is so the question is, are we not still concerned about the native heritage area on that property? There is a big open field right now on that property. It's a play field that we can't light. It sits right in the path of the Renton Airport. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? It's a huge piece of land or play area on that property. We really can't do a lot with that for two reasons. One, there could be artifacts underneath that land, and if we start digging, we disrupt that, and it would cost a lot of money to bring in people to work a process to make sure that we're not impacting that. What's also very important about that piece of land is that it does sit in direct path of the Renton Airport, so we can't build up high. We can't put lights on that to make it a play field because they'd have to be up pretty high, and that disrupts the air traffic. And we can't put a building on there because that sits too high. So we're focusing on the land just to the right of that, all the way back to Airport Way.
It would stay undeveloped?
Right now, we would have to figure out whether or not it can be a parking lot because we wouldn't have to dig too far down. We just have to grade the area for drainage. So we're giving it some thought. We want to do something with it, but right now it's not of much use for
There
them.
are no stakeholders who would have objections to making it a parking lot?
Well, there could be, but right now it's not being used to a great extent at all. I mean, our students go out there, but you can't run track on it. You can't play football or baseball on it because it's not lit. So in the wintertime, it's dark all the time, and it's not well. There's not a lot of good drainage on it. So we have to do something with it, and we're giving that consideration as we start working through these plans to build.
A few years ago, it seems to me they were talking about tearing up Airport Way, moving Airport Way because FAA wouldn't let there be traffic there. So how does that fit in? Did you have clearance from FAA to be expanded?
That's a good question. The question is that a few years ago there was talk by the city of Renton and the Renton Municipal Airport that the FAA was going to come in and expand the airport out beyond Airport Way toward Renton High School. It is our understanding right now, working with the city of Renton and FAA, that is not going to happen. So we're going to move forward with our plan. Renton, I think Airport Way remains as it is. Renton Airport, as it's configured right now, remains the same for the foreseeable future. So we're authorized to move forward with our plan to expand Renton High School's footprint. Yes, sir.
The Spanish language immersion program is open for any child that age in the district?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is it application, lottery system?
Go to rentonschools.com and you can actually fill out a form right now. It's an interest form, so what we want to do is figure out how many parents we're going to that are interested, so we know what the class will look like. So we'll ask you your interest, and then there'll be a form that you can fill out. It is, I'm sorry, the question was the Spanish language program that's at Talbot Hill. How do you apply for it? Any kindergarten, an incoming kindergarten student, family of a kindergarten student can apply. That means that you're 5 years old by August 31st. So if your child is 5 years old before August 31st, you can enter kindergarten and you can apply to be in that program. It's open to all kids throughout the district, and depending on where those kids are at, we'll be able to provide transportation for kids to get to that program too. Not a lot of families like putting kindergartners on crosstown buses, but if transportation is needed, we're going to provide that also. Yes, ma'am.
The Renton High program, is there any interaction or complementary with Head Start at all?
The question is is there a correlation between Head Start and the Ready K program that we're implementing? The answer is no. We're going to continue having the Head Start program at Meadowcrest Early Learning Center. So students that would be entering the Ready K program, we're going to be able to make accommodations for students with special needs, but not, it won't be tied into Head Start. We do have a process that allows families to be selected by income. So if they're low-income families that are wondering about being involved in this program, it is a Renton School District program, so it's a public school program, so everybody's invited to join that program. Yes, sir.
Is there class space for that program or in each of the schools?
So the question is there class space for this new Ready K program at all schools? Right now there is, especially since we've opened up the new Hilltop Heritage Elementary School. That allowed us to actually move a lot of families up on the Sunset area into different schools, and so the populations have pretty much settled in right now and have decreased at all of the elementary schools up there. So right now we're pretty confident we can accommodate it. What we're really interested in right now is to get public interest, to get family interest. How many folks are out there that would be interested in enrolling their 4-year-old into a Ready K program? A lot of that, as you can imagine, is trying to reach out to families who aren't in the district yet. If they, because kids usually start in our district at 5 years old in kindergarten. So we're reaching out to families now to find those families with 4-year-olds that would like to enter this program. So that's the work we're going to be doing for the next several months, so we know exactly what kind of space we need at all the schools. Thank you for the questions. I'm still here after this. I'll wait around if there's any more questions, but I'm probably over my time, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Next up, we have Jeff Brown with Friends of Dead Horse Canyon. Come on up. And your spot is right here, so you can be in the video view.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jeff Brown from Friends of Dead Horse Canyon. We're a group that takes care of the park, and I assume you're familiar with Dead Horse Canyon. It's part of Lakeridge Park, the City of Seattle park that is adjacent to the Lakeridge and Skyway area. I'm here just to give you an update on the Taylor Creek restoration project that Public Utilities has had on the table for about 20 years. You may remember a few years ago they had a plan to build a road through the canyon along the trail to control stormwater sediment. And the community spoke up and objected, and so they decided to cut the road in half. And the community objected again. So last spring, the city went back to the drawing board and engaged a value study group of experts to search particularly for an answer to sediment problems in the canyon without building a road. And the group came back with a number of very interesting proposals. And these proposals were grouped into, were cut down and grouped and presented to the community. We had a chance to give our opinion. 3 sort of suites of options were selected, and right now they're in the process of evaluating those options for cost, feasibility, and effectiveness. And I'd hoped tonight to be able to tell you what they had come up with, but it's still in the process of evaluation now for another month, we think. So we hope to have some news maybe by the next West Hill meeting to present with what they've decided. We're very, very hopeful that any one of these 3 options will be chosen over the road building option. They all seem to be just as effective, a lot easier to implement, and a lot cheaper. Another bit of good news, the city though has decided to go ahead with 2 parts of the original project that we've been encouraging all along. And that the first is to put supportive pilings underneath the trail, the sewer line that runs underneath the trail, to shore up the trail in places where it's obvious, if you've ever been on the trail, it's sloughing off down in the canyon, the sewer line is being compromised. So we want that addressed, and they're going to go ahead with that. And their plan is to do that work with small tracked vehicles. They'd originally wanted to, part of the road building project was to get access to shore up the sewer line. But they've decided they can do this work with little smaller vehicles that can use the existing trail. And so they're going to go ahead with that work, and they hope to get permits for that and maybe get it started in 2025 or 2026. When that happens, the park will be closed. The trail will be closed for probably 2 or 3 months while they do the work. But they won't have to build a road, and so this may be 2025 or 2026. The other part of the project that they're going to go ahead with is what they call tight lining of the wastewater outfall, stormwater outfalls that come out of King County on the east side of the canyon and drop down in the canyon. And those are a major source of the sediment that's going into the creek, that's washing out into Lake Washington, that caused this whole problem to begin with. The nice thing is that they've gotten money from King County, so King County has agreed to help out on this part of the project. And they hope to get that going very soon, and we hope they may even be able to complete that part of the project by 2025. And they don't expect that the park will be, the use of the park will be disrupted at all in that part of the project. So, one more minute. I just wanted to say that we also have our work parties on the third Saturday of every month, this time conflicting with the Skyway work party. So I won't ask you to show up for this month's work party on Saturday. But if you're ever inclined to come down and help us pull some weeds, plant some plants or some trees or something, we meet at the Trailhead parking lot at the hairpin there at Holyoke and 68th by the pizza place down off Rainier. We meet there at 9 o'clock every third Saturday of every month. We work till 1. We try to have a good time. And one more thing, our chief steward, our guy that started our group 30 years ago, still with us, still leading work parties, got an award last week from the City of Seattle for outstanding volunteer achievement. It's called the Denny Award. And it's a very gratifying award for our group and for Eric in particular, Eric Espentorst. Anyway, I think that's it, and I'm 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, I can answer them. Oh, I would say if you have any more, want any more information about the sewer project or the park or whatever, our work parties, you can go to friendsofdeadhorsecanyon.org. There we have a link to the parks project, to the public utilities project, and also you can sign up for work parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right. Next up, we have Marge with a VFW report. She's not on the agenda, but we are adding her here.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marge Putman, and I'm giving the report about the VFW. Margie Lindbergh, who's the leader of the VFW auxiliary, she's not able to come tonight, so she asked me to give the report for her. She said I'd like to give a brief report about what's happening up at the post. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar where the VFW auxiliary is, right next to, right across from Navrat's Coffee House. There's that one building, and right behind it is the VFW auxiliary. So she says about that there's a Scout Troop number 419 is having their Court of Honor tonight. So that Scout Troop 419 is the only special needs scout group in the state of Washington. The scouts range in age from 18 to 30, and they do everything that scouts do, such as projects, earning badges, and camping. One of the scout participants is in the Special Olympics all around the world. And she said this past holiday season, we were able to serve many families in our community with Thanksgiving baskets, Christmas baskets, and a Christmas Santa party, and gifts for many of the students here at Lakeridge, Bryn Mawr, and Campbell Hill. Of course, we also sponsor 5 different schools at Fort Lewis. Please look at our Facebook page to see some of the pictures from our holiday parties. Of course, all of this doesn't happen without your help with fundraising. The Skyway, VFW, and Auxiliary are nonprofit organizations. Our next event is our Hero Holiday Fundraiser on the last Saturday of the month, January 27th. They will have a German dinner and auction. The doors will open at 4 o'clock, and we hope you can join us. There will be a meet and greet with leadership of our adopted JBLM units. All funds raised go directly to support the unit's morale events. So thank you for your time and your attention, and again, watch the Facebook page, the Skyway Post 9430, for all of the events that they do throughout the year. Thank you. Anybody have any questions about the VFW?
Can't talk about River Night.
Burger nights are Thursday nights. So, and they're $6, and they're great to get to know people in just right around the area. Some people come from quite a ways, but they usually have music and dancing. So if you like to strut your stuff on the dance floor, come and join them.
All right, thank you, Marge. All right, next up we have Melissa from the Skyway Library. I'm sorry, I don't know your full title, so you can say it.
It is long. Good evening. I recognize some faces here, which is nice. I'm the teen adult librarian at the Skyway Library. I have been there since about July of last year. As people in my book group know, what I like to say is we want the community to tell us what programs you want us to have there. So come in, look for me, tell somebody if you have some idea. My famous line is, if you have a tree in your yard and you want to know what it is and you want to know more about trees, come to me, I'll find the expert and have a program. So it's a little bit different these days. We want it to come from you all. I mean, I can have a program on something I care about, but I want it to come from the community. So couple things we do have coming up, and this was something that Finn had asked me, 5 signs of a scam. So the Consumer Protection Division of the Washington State Attorney General's office is coming this Saturday. I have some flyers over there. I'm going to be doing with the AARP another fraud program. So I'm having a series kind of things, whether it's cybercrime or whether it's, this is kind of about email and phone and text scams. So there'll be different subject matter, and maybe it'll have some crossover as well. We also have coming up starting next week for children ages 3 to 5 with an adult, Little Labs. And so that is a very popular program that Kids Quest Children's Museum, which is in Bellevue, does for us. And so those are for us Thursdays from 1:30 to 2:30. So that's 3 to 5 with an adult. We also, we're going to have tax help coming up. That's going to start February 7th. A little bit different this year. Last year you could call a number. This year you're going to have to go to a link in order to sign up. But at the library, what do you know you can do? You can come and ask us. So that'll be on Wednesdays, every Wednesday starting February 7th, and the last one will be April 10th. Renton Highlands, which is also in our region, they'll also have it on Thursdays and Saturdays. There is a link if you go to AARP.com and do tax aid and put in a zip code, and it'll give you, like within 50 miles, what other tax aid, free tax aid is out there. So, and then we have some online computer classes that are very, very popular. If you don't have a device of your own, you can come in and do the programs at our library, but any of these things, call us up and we can give you more information or come in and see us. Coming up, I'm going to have gardening programs every month, one day every month, except for July and August. Everything from container gardens to growing mushrooms. So that will be once a month. And then I'm also going to have the Washington State Parks are going to come in, and they're going to do programs, everything from about animals like beavers to teaching you about Dash Point State Park or just various things. So they're going to probably do a program for me every month as well. So we have tutoring, online and in person. We have a book group that a couple of my members are in here that's Thursdays 1 to 2. I'm trying to do one in the evening, so if anybody's interested in that, let me know. Any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. I should have said your title was Skyway's favorite librarian.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on now. We've got a few others. Don't tell Ursula.
All right. Next up, I just want to make an announcement on behalf of Miss Bridget Hempstead, who runs the Sierra Sisters organization. They are having their World Cancer Day event on February 3rd. It's a Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m. is the program, and a dinner from 3 to 5 p.m. And that is at the Langston Hughes Performing Arts Center. And we should have event information on our website.
Question on Facebook for one of our favorite librarians. Are you still accepting books? I'm assuming that's for Friends of Skyway Library. Is there still a ability to drop off books for the Friends book sales?
Yes.
Yes.
Please, yes. I don't know when the next book sale is, but you can always leave books, and I think let a lot of people know that, because a lot of our libraries are finding that people cleared out during the pandemic, and then nobody has any books now, and so book sales have diminished a bit at all of our branches. So please bring them. Any King County library system bring.
Okay. The answer is yes, please. Please bring your Friends of Skyway Library book sale donations to the Skyway Library.
Great. Okay. Are there any other community reports that I might have missed before we move on to our main presentation? Okay. So I'd like to welcome Sophie Bells, who is a research associate with the University of Washington. She's going to kick off our main presentation, which is focused on racially restrictive covenants in Skyway. And then we have Adria Buchanan joining online via Zoom. And she's going to present afterwards about the covenant homeownership study. And then that will be followed by former board member and Skyway resident Cliff Coffin. And so I'm excited for us to have a chance to hear about these issues, especially on a week where we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King on Monday, and see what we can learn and how we can continue to move forward to make housing more equitable and just in Skyway. All right, I will pull up your slides.
Thank you. Hi everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Sophie. I'm a student at the University of Washington, and I'm also a research associate on the Racial Restrictive Covenants Project, which is run by Professor James Gregory at the University of Washington. I'm going to start by going over our agenda and doing a quick content warning. Before we begin with the presentation, I want to let everyone know that our project deals with a lot of primary documents and historical records, and some of the language used in these documents is offensive and racist. In the coming slides, you may see or hear offensive language that was used in this context. To begin, I will give a brief overview of what racial restrictive covenants are and why researching and understanding them matters. Basically, racial restrictive covenants are agreements entered into by a group of property owners or a seller in a given neighborhood which legally binded them to not sell, lease, or rent their property to specified racial or religious groups. These were legally binding clauses in deeds and other property records. And then if we go a few slides in, we can see images of restrictive covenants taken from property records in King County. Later, I will go into more depth about the language used in these covenants and how they were used to explicitly deny property to specific groups. Now I'm going to talk about our project. The Racial Restrictive Covenants Project, which maps these restrictions and which I work for, began in 2005, but was unable to be completed due to a lack of funding. However, in March of 2021, the Washington legislature passed and signed State Bill 1335 to fund the project's goal of identifying racist deed restrictions and covenants in property records across the state of Washington. This project is divided into two teams, one team based at the University of Washington, and there's another team based at Eastern Washington University. We are taking on all the counties west of the Cascades, and they're taking everything on the east, with a few exceptions. To date, we have identified roughly 50,000 restrictions in Washington. About 34,000 of those are in King County, 4,000 in Pierce and Snohomish, and over 1,000 in Thurston, Whatcom, Skagit, and Island County. And we actually just went through a huge process of digitizing a ton of property records from the period of time where these restrictions were most common. So we have over 1 million new scanned deeds, which we still need to look for restrictions in. So it's likely that these numbers and the corresponding maps that we have on the website will be changing a lot in the next few months and years as we learn about more restrictions. I'm going to talk a bit about redlining and the real estate industry and how that connects to the project. I'm sure you all know, millions lost their homes during the Great Depression, and under the New Deal, both the Home Owners Loan Corporation and the Federal Housing Administration were founded to aid in white home ownership through mortgages and low interest lending. The Homeowners Loan Corporation produced its famous redlining maps in 1936 in order to advise mortgage lenders where their investments would be safe or hazardous. Neighborhoods coded in red, the lowest rating, were always those containing high concentrations of people of color, while green, the highest rating, signified an almost entirely white population. Beginning in the 1920s and continuing through the next 3 decades, the real estate industry's efforts paralleled those of the federal government by implementing racial restrictive covenants and enforcing housing discrimination to further solidify segregation. The big distinction here is that redlining was a practice of the federal government, while racial restrictive covenants were a product of the real estate industry enabled by the federal government. The real estate industry directly contributed to segregation and was responsible for these racial restrictive covenants. Until 1950, the National Association of Real Estate Boards had a clause in their code of ethics against selling homes to a person of color because it would be destructive to the property values of the neighborhood. Almost all of the Seattle real estate brokers were members of the National Association and upheld this code when selling. Okay, now for the next slide. Although many assume that the Pacific Northwest was immune to segregation of the Jim Crow South, it is important to acknowledge that the Pacific Northwest practiced active racial discrimination for a very long time. In most southern states, segregation of schools, buses, restaurants, and public facilities was required by law. Although this was not the case in Washington state, local government agencies supported discrimination and segregation in various ways, including the certification of racial restrictive covenants and encouraging police to harass black individuals seen in white neighborhoods. Seattle's segregation practices extended beyond housing. Black and Asian Americans were often denied service in bars, restaurants, barbershops, and even hospitals. The picture on this slide shows a restaurant located in Lake City until the 1950s, which demonstrates the prevalence of racism and discrimination in King County, countering mythical narratives that leave the Pacific Northwest untouched by racist practices and policies. I'm now going to transition to focusing on racial segregation in Skyway and King County. King County has a long history of racial discrimination and segregation. For many generations, African Americans, Asian Americans, and Native Americans were shut out of neighborhoods, schools, many occupations, and sometimes stores and restaurants. In the late 1800s, Indigenous Americans were banned from the city of Seattle, despite Seattle being located on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. Chinese people were also driven out of Seattle in 1886 labor riots, and those that returned were restricted both in employment and housing opportunities. The map on the right here shows where most non-white people lived during the 1940s in Seattle. As you can see, non-white people were heavily concentrated to certain areas, and this is indicated by the color red on the map, showing the extent to which the county was segregated. And on the next slide, I have some examples that are more specific to this area. So you can see the larger map of Seattle, and then I zoomed in to show the specific region right here, and the redlining categorizations that it had. Now I'm going to talk about the end of racial restrictive covenants. Oh, actually, I'm going to talk about the specific covenants.
Hello, could I ask you to come a bit closer?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm in the front and I have a hard time hearing you already. I don't know about other people, but...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions or if you need to speak up or anything. I appreciate it.
Speak up a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, can you hear better now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
What is the color coding?
Yeah, I can explain that more. The color coding shows the, this is actually the mapping style that we have on the Racial Restrictive Covenants website. So you can look up any area in Washington that we have mapped, and you'll be able to see this type of map showing both redlining and then overlapping restrictive covenants. So in this map, the green shows the most desirable areas, which really meant like the whitest areas that they wanted to invest in most. And then blue is the second categorization, and then yellow, and then red is deemed the most undesirable. Does that answer your question? Okay. And then on the next slide, we should be able to take a look at some of the specific racial restrictive covenants in this area. The largest restrictive covenant was of Lakeridge Divisions 1, 2, and 3, which you can see circled in that area. And this is the language that was used in the covenant to restrict these properties. I also have slides for the two smaller restrictions. Oh, these are the deeds, the housing deeds that the restrictions are contained in, which we found in the records. These are smaller areas that were restricted, but these were the three main areas that I found restricted in this area. I also included who restricted the properties. The large property on the right, Lake Division, was restricted by the Goodwin Company, which is a pretty prolific restrictor in this area, and there are other properties aside from this area which they bought and racially restricted. And we often see that it's a single developer who will like use this language in their agenda and create large tracts which are inaccessible to certain people. Now I'm going to talk about the end of racial restrictive covenants. In 1948, the landmark Shelley v. Kramer Supreme Court case ruled that restrictive covenants and property deeds violated the equal protection provision of the 14th Amendment. While this may appear to be beneficial, the ruling actually did very little. New restrictions were added to subdivisions and recorded by county auditors well into the 1950s, and segregation continued to be enforced formally and informally. In 1964, after 40 cities had already passed laws banning discrimination in housing, Seattle citizens voted against the measure 2-1. Here is a newspaper ad paid for by the real estate industry claiming that the proposed law violated property rights. It is important to note that the decision was made in the midst of a nationwide struggle for civil rights. There was not significant change until the Fair Housing Act in 1968. In the wake of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, Congress passed the Fair Housing Act prohibiting housing discrimination, and the legislature followed up in 1969 by voiding discriminatory provisions in real estate contracts. Which means that now all of these restrictions, while they're still in a lot of housing deeds, are voided, so they can't be used in transferring property. But an aim of this project also is that people can go back and look at their neighborhoods and see which properties in their vicinity were restricted and how prolifically. These next few maps are going to show residential distributions across time starting in 1960, then 1980 and 2020 to show how these different policies impacted demographics in the Seattle area. The next one will show similar for African American residents. And then the final slide shows the demographics in Skyway. So this is from the 1960 census, and then more recently in 2020. So you can see this is like a pattern that has been seen in Seattle where people of color have been pushed south, and it's more predominantly white in northern Seattle, but there's also more integration now than in 1960, obviously.
What do the gray colors refer to?
Yeah, that's like density. So density of the population. So the darker the color on the map is the higher concentration of people of color. We don't have the exact statistics in those areas, but it tries to show the changes after these policies were enacted. So this history largely matters because of the wealth effect of yesterday's segregation. Homeownership is the main way that Americans build family wealth. Segregation suppressed home ownership and wealth building opportunities for people of color who had trouble buying homes, and those who did manage to buy homes paid artificially high prices for them. Even though racial restrictive covenants and housing discrimination are now technically illegal, black families are still less likely to own homes, and their homes are worth less on average than white families who have been accumulating real estate wealth for generations. I'll give you a second to look at this map that depicts homeownership rates for King County for different racial groups. As you can see, white homeownership rates have generally stayed pretty steady for the past 60 years. Black homeownership rates have dropped nearly 20%, and Latinx rates have dropped as well.
Can you tell us which colors are for which, for folks that can't read that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The blue color is going to show black owners, green is Latino owners, red is white owners, purple is Asian owners, and the orange is indigenous homeowners. And we can move on whenever people are gone. Yeah, this is again more of what I talked about in the last slide. This shows the ways in which family income and homeownership are.
Can you read? It's very hard for people online to see. Can you read maybe the first two, like the under 50,000, and I think that's 50 to 75?
Yeah, definitely.
And what the blue and red bar means?
Absolutely. So the title of this is Homeowners by Family Income and Race in King County. It's a graph from 2018. This first bar here is under 50,000, and then the next one is 50 to 75, 75 to 100, 100 to 150, and above 150,000. The blue bar here is showing for Black Americans, and then the red is for white. In this first category, the comparison is 11 to 38. In the second one, it's 22 to 53, 42 to 61, 55 to 70, and 72 to 84.
So what is that on the far left? What does that mean? Can you spell out what it means in some way?
Yeah. This basically means what we have on the slides. At every income level, white families are more likely to own homes than Black families. And so if you're making under $50,000, whereas a white family would be have a 38% chance of owning a home because of generational wealth and like familial support in this way, whereas a Black individual or family would only have an 11% chance because they don't have the same access to that generational wealth. And that shows that even at any level of income, at any education level, these patterns are still seen. And then I think that I'm not going to talk too long about the House bill, but this basically acknowledges state responsibility for the generational harm resulting from these restrictive covenants, and establishes a covenant homeownership account to provide a down payment loans to first-time home buyers with incomes below the area median average who were victims of property exclusion before 1968 and their descendants. Are there any questions about the presentation? I might not be able to answer anything, but I can try. Yeah.
Is there any way that can be shown now how this demographic has changed within these communities? Because it's very, very different from what it was in the 50s.
How like home ownership rates have changed?
Home ownership, yeah. People who live within these areas, what their racial or ethnic or whatever makeup is, because it's totally different from what it used to be.
Completely. We actually have a function. If anyone's interested in more information on the project, we have a website, the Racial Restrictive Covenants Project, and you look it up, you can find a map for all of Washington State, but it's more fleshed out for King County. And you can actually filter by census information from 1960 and 2020, like I did here with any region, and then also filter for any restrictive covenants and the redlining areas that were present. Yeah.
So are these being removed, these restrictive covenants? If they are, how can it be done?
Yeah, we're actually, the project doesn't support fully like erasing them from the record because we think that would not do like justice to the history of this area. But what the project is trying to do is let homeowners know if their property was restricted, and then they can file something to have like have it symbolically removed. But we hope that like they stay on so people are aware of how this history affects current home ownership. Yeah.
So if you have a program to lend down payment funds, is that like a super low interest?
I actually don't have a ton of knowledge about this. I mostly work on the research end, which is funded through kind of this project and this initiative, so that's not my area of expertise.
I'm hoping our next speaker could help answer that question. Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Okay, so next up we have Adria, and she is the Executive Director of Fair Housing, the Executive Director of Fair Housing Center of Washington, and she's joining us via Zoom. She was not feeling up to being in person today, so just give me a moment while I connect this computer, and feel free to grab some food. And she's more talking about the current steps of the covenant homeownership. What's the right account? Thank you, Cliff. Account program. And so hopefully she can answer some questions as well that you all may have. So give me a minute. can you hear us? Okay, we're just making sure the tech is all working, so I'll
Just raise the volume up all the way.
let me change the volume to the presentation screen. Can you try saying something? Nope. Can you try now?
Test one, test one.
It's just coming out of my laptop.
Oh.
Or maybe because I can.
Oh, maybe because it's HDMI to an extension. That's probably less. Here, let me see.
Can you try one more time, Andrea?
Yep, hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. I'm trying to get you onto the large screen with the big speakers. So just give me a second.
Sure.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. All right.
Okay, excellent. And is it loud enough, or do I need to talk louder?
I think the volume is great.
Okay.
Are you going to be sharing slides? You want to make sure that.
Yes, let me do that. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. Uh-oh, hold on. Sorry. On my end, I did something. I've lost my mouse. One second. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, try the sound one more time.
Okay, hello.
Okay, I think we're ready to start. Thank you, Adria.
Okay, excellent. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. And thank you to Finn for coordinating my presence with you all. My name is Adria Buchanan. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Center of Washington. We're located in Tacoma, but we serve all of Western and Central Washington, so 23 counties. And what I'm sharing with you today is about the Covenant Home Ownership Program and Study. So a continuation of the work that the last presenter shared with you as far as, you know, we know that there have been restrictive covenants. We know that they have had a negative impact on people's home buying opportunities, and so what I'm sharing with you now is what the next step is after the act has been passed, and things that you can expect going forward. So I'll get into some of the background on the Covenant Homeownership Act just real briefly, and then I'll talk about the study process, answer some of the frequently asked questions, and then I'll talk about the study timeline. And if you all have questions, then we can have a discussion. Okay, so the term covenant refers to the racially restrictive clauses used in neighborhoods throughout the state of Washington to keep people out based on their race or religion. Again, you've already heard this tonight, so I won't really get too much into it, but the legislature allocated funds for the University of Washington and Eastern Washington University to identify those covenants and to notify homeowners how to strike the language. And we know that to date, over 50,000 properties have been identified. This past spring, with the help of the Housing Development Consortium and the Black Home Initiative, as well as Representative Jamila Taylor, Senator John Lovick, and Representative Frank Chop, the legislature passed the Covenant Home Ownership Act. And this legislation, it makes Washington the first state to face and address the role of government institutions in housing-related discrimination, and it targets compensation in the form of mortgage assistance, interest-free down payment loans to families that were harmed by racist restrictions in housing opportunities in the years when such restrictions were government sanctioned. and this is prior to the 1968 Fair Housing Act. So based on the legislation that's in place right now, applicants must be first-time home buyers with incomes at or below the area median, and they must have been a Washington resident before 1968 or a descendant of someone who was. And then the study findings, which I'll get into, they might suggest additional considerations for who should be eligible for this program. So, in speaking about the act itself, what does it do? The first thing it does, it calls for a research study. So the research study has to investigate housing discrimination against marginalized communities in Washington state, and specifically what role government institutions have had in the discrimination, the impacts of the discrimination, and potential remedies for the impact. These findings will help determine who will be eligible for assistance and establish the framework for the creation of a special purpose credit program under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. And I'll get more into those details. So that's the first part, is that it calls for a research study. The second part is a new source of funding. So in order for us to have enough money to help to fund this down payment assistance or whatever other form the special purpose credit program might take, there is a call for a $100 document reporting assessment fee on every real estate transaction. And so those fees have already started to be collected, and they will be deposited into the Covenant Home Ownership account. And like I said, they will fund the special purpose credit program. And that program is being designed as we speak, and it will be implemented based on the findings of the research study. So again, if folks have questions, you can interrupt me, otherwise I'll just keep going and we can talk about it at the end. Okay, so what is a special purpose credit program? Special purpose credit programs were made available by the Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974 to benefit a specific class of persons who share common characteristics. For example, race, national origin, or sex. They are an important tool in expanding fair access to credit, particularly for consumers and communities impacted by discrimination. So what's important here is that special purpose credit programs were part of bank programming, and so banks have had these types of programs to target different financial products to consumers for a long time. But what's different about this program is that it's calling for a state institution to establish a special purpose credit program. So a private entity to establish a program that has a particular focus for people who share a common characteristic. Why do we want to create a special purpose credit program? Well, as we just heard, the racial homeownership gap will persist without specific intervention that goes beyond colorblind or race neutral assistance. So a special purpose credit program, it can be race conscious, and that is also what makes it special in this sense. And it is allowing our state to directly remedy the harm caused by its discriminatory policies and practices. So a special purpose credit program, again, it goes beyond that colorblind or race neutral assistance and calls for a race conscious approach. And yeah, until now, only private businesses, like I said, banks, have utilized special purpose credit programs to remedy harm caused by their actions. The Covenant Home Ownership Act is the first programmatic use by a government agency to remove persistent structural barriers to home ownership. So again, this is a really precedent-setting opportunity that we have in Washington, and a lot of other states across the nation are looking at how we go about constructing this special purpose credit program to see if it's something that they would also be able to implement. So when does the program begin? Based on the findings, the Covenant Home Ownership Program will be designed in the spring of 2024. So in the next, like I said, as we speak and over the next month or two, and then program participants will begin receiving assistance by July 1st of this year. As far as who's eligible, as I mentioned earlier, it's households with incomes at or below 100% of the area median, you have to be a first-time home buyer and a Washington State resident who was a resident before the enactment of the Federal Fair Housing Act, or was or would have been excluded from home ownership in Washington State by a racially restrictive covenant on or before April 1968, or a descendant of someone who was. Okay, and important to note here is that the Covenant Homeownership Program study will use evidence-based research to identify people who would require assistance to reduce racial disparities in home ownership. And this in turn will shape the eligibility guidelines. So there is a ton of research that has been done already, looking through everything from newspapers to, news articles, books that have been written, other research studies that have been done, talking with subject matter experts and members of different community groups. There's been a lot of evidence-based research to identify the groups of people that would require assistance based on past discrimination as well as ongoing discrimination. And so all of that is helping to inform the eligibility guidelines. So they may be exactly these guidelines in the end. They may be slightly different based on the research findings. All right, so who's responsible for the program? The Washington State Housing Finance Commission are the ones who will design, develop, implement, and evaluate the Covenant Homeownership Program. The commission is also responsible for overseeing the Covenant Home Ownership Program study that's determining the details of the program. So again, there are a group of us that are working on the study portion of it and the community engagement. And once all that is packaged and delivered to the Housing Finance Commission, they are the ones who will ultimately make the decision about how that program will look and how it will be implemented. All right, so as far as who's conducting the study, it's the National Fair Housing Alliance and its partners, Apt Associates, the Fair Housing Center of Washington, which is the organization that I represent, and then Northwest Fair Housing Alliance. They're located in Spokane and they serve the eastern part of the state. So National Fair Housing Alliance, they are the prime contractor in this case, and they were selected through a competitive process. So I'll just touch briefly on the qualifications, so you just know a little bit about who's doing the study, and then I'll talk about the timeline, and then we can have more of a discussion. So the National Fair Housing Alliance, they're the lead consultant. They are legal experts, and they know how to create a sound foundation for a special purpose credit program or other solutions. They're experienced quantitative researchers, and they know a lot about homeownership programs, and they are policy experts in that regard. The Fair Housing Center of Washington and Northwest Fair Housing Alliance, we are Washington-based organizations, and we have in-depth knowledge of the history and legacy of housing discrimination in Washington. We have expertise in data collection around discriminatory actions, and we know our neighborhoods. We are local policy research experts, and we know about policy development and really have good local context for what's going to work in the housing market that we're in right now. And then Apt Associates, they're the ones who are doing a lot of the modeling, and so they know a lot about data analysis and how to weigh different policy options and what it will look like in terms of how many people can be served through different amounts of down payment assistance. So they are evaluation experts, and they're doing a lot of the modeling. Okay, so what I want to just share with you today is that, so through our different engagements, we had been asking people, what their experiences were, if they had any personal experience or they knew of anyone who had been discriminated against in Washington when trying to buy a home or engaging in some other part of the home buying process. And that part of the data collection has ended so that we can look through everything, analyze it, and use that as part of the study. But really the purpose of this session is to let you know that this program is going to be available very soon, and really for you to sign up for updates so that you know when the funds become available. You know, we know that in Washington, lots of opportunities come up, and oftentimes the money can be gone very quickly, or there are not enough funds available by the time people know that they are available. And so we just want to get out ahead of it and let you all know that this is coming down the line, that, you know, the funds are already being collected, and come July 1st, there will be a program that people will have access to. Here, and I can share these with Finn as well, but these are just some of the links that can be helpful for you if you want to know more about this work. The Housing Finance Commission has a page on their website that really details where we are in the process. And sorry, I skipped that slide, so I'll go back. So we're here, January, the state is collecting the document recording fee. Pretty soon, the study will be published. So sometime in March, I believe, the study will be published, and then the program will be developed, and people will know the full details of the program. And then in the summer, it'll launch, and you know, those individuals who are eligible will begin to access those funds. So I'll just stop there and open it up if people have questions or just other things they'd like to talk about.
I'll just go ahead since she can. Hi, thanks for the presentation.
I'll check if she can hear me. Adria, can you hear Micah talking back there?
Hi. Can you hear me?
No, I see a hand wave, but
Okay, we're pretty low tech. He's coming up.
Can we switch to her
Okay.
face so we can see her?
Switch. Yes.
Great. Can you hear me, Adria?
yes, I can.
Okay. My question is, do we know, are there projections about how much money potentially would be collected? Any kind of like predictions on that? And then what about how many people are available to, might be eligible for this? Do we have any sense of that?
Yeah, so I don't want to speak out of turn because, like I said, the study is being kind of finalized as we speak, and so it all kind of depends on what option the Housing Finance Commission chooses. As far as the total amount of money that'll be in the Covenant Home Ownership Act fund, I don't know, because with document recording fees, and I'm sure, excuse me, you know, you all have seen this with other types of document recording fees, is that they fluctuated a lot because of the market, right? And so a year ago, there were a lot more housing transactions happening, you know, because we were in a relatively hotter market, right? And so there was a lot of activity, whereas now there's not as much activity. And so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the projection is. I'm not sure what the actual amount collected today, you know, between now and July. I don't know what that amount is projected to be, and I don't know if it's different than what was projected when this act was initially passed. So, yeah, unfortunately, I cannot answer that question, but I would say that there's going to be probably a lot of fluctuation with this particular fund. And then the second part of your question about how many individuals would be eligible, again, it kind of depends, well, not kind of, I mean, it depends on which type of down payment assistance the commission chooses to take on. because if you have a lower number, if you have a lower amount of down payment assistance, you could help more people, presumably. But in today's market, we know that in order for someone to really help someone and make home ownership accessible, the amount of down payment assistance needed is much, much greater than it would have been a couple of years ago. So it's really trying to find this balance of how do you help as many people as possible, but how do you actually help them enough to where they can get over that hump and purchase a home? Because, you know, to be perfectly honest, I mean, another $10,000 in down payment assistance isn't going to be as helpful in today's market as, you know, another 50,000 or 100,000. You know, there are just certain conditions that we're dealing with in the market today that make it difficult to find that balance. And so that's what we're working on and asking the commission, you know, what do they want to prioritize? You know, because as you all know, like, it's much harder to qualify for loans these days. And the amount of down payment assistance that you would need for it to have a substantial effect on your ability to afford the home, again, is just much greater. So that's what we're working on. And, you know, I'm in as much anticipation as you all to kind of learn what the final details of the program are going to be.
Thank you, Adria. I think Cliff has some information to share, but before, maybe Adria, do you want to stay on if there are any questions? I'm going to let Cliff do a little bit of sharing, and then if there are other questions, then folks can ask those as well.
Yeah, sure. And Cliff is well versed in this process as well as a member of the core committee on this. So.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much. First of all, Adria, thank you very much for your work. We've exchanged emails back and forth, and I know that the cold's starting to go around, so I preemptively took some cold medicine, so don't worry, I'm kind of keep my distance. But I appreciate you being here, you know, regardless. And my name is Cliff Cawthon. I'm a former board member of the West Hill Community Association. And by day, I work for Habitat for Humanity. We were one of the stakeholder groups that took part in the grand coalition that Adria referred to when she was talking about the process by which the coveted homeownership account bill was passed. And I also happen to teach American government and politics at Bellevue College on the side. So in short, this kind of stuff I kind of live, eat, and breathe it. But to fill in a couple things, I'm also a member of the Covenant Homeownership Account Program Oversight Committee. So our committee is made up, or rather board. It's a government-appointed board of a number of different stakeholders, from affordable housing developers like Habitat for Humanity, Seattle, King, Kittitas counties. We feature members of the legislature, 2 Republican appointees, 2 Democratic appointees, and also other real estate professionals, mortgage providers, and also someone who will have actually qualified for the Covenant Homeownership Account program once it is put into motion, someone from the East and someone from the West. But all that being said, the point of the oversight board is to do just that, provide oversight to make sure that we can take a look at the data and provide a well-rounded perspective on how to implement this program. Because, not to overstress this, but this is a first-in-the-nation program designed to remedy the harms of the past. And your questions actually kind of lead into that. So, as Adria said, that With the downturn in the real estate market, we are expecting less revenue to come in. At one time, there's an estimate of about $100 million to come in this first year alone. However, we're definitely looking at a decrease in that. And by the way, I should add that this is a $100 assessment, or rather assessment fee on top of the document recording fee. So document recording fee goes to other things, but this $100 fee will go to the fund that funds the account, right? Or go directly into the account. Now, when it comes to the discussion about whether or not, or how many people can benefit, that's complicated because there are a number of factors that have led to displacement. And unfortunately, due to the housing crisis, there have been many people who have left Washington because they cannot afford to buy a home and found a job elsewhere, or decided to move somewhere where they could afford to live, or due to legacies of disenfranchisement and basically being marginalized, there were a number of people that sought opportunities elsewhere. But for those who are here and for those who can trace their family's lineage here, particularly before 1968, this will enable them to, on top of other programs, enable them to potentially be able to own a home in the area. Now, one thing I want to address, and partly forgive the scribbles and stuff like that, I was also a journalist at one time, so I have a lot of messy notebooks around my office. One thing I want to address is that one of the major legislative drivers behind this was the Black Home Initiative. And the Black Home Initiative is a coalition of a number of private sector, nonprofit, as well as even local government actors, all committed to addressing the racial home ownership gap. So Sophie, right? Yep, so Sophie and Adria, I think, beautifully and eloquently, illustrated what the origin of that gap is and the legacy of that. But one thing I want to reiterate is that Black home ownership in Washington State is less than half white home ownership, and we're talking about total in terms of the percentage of white households that own their own home versus Black households in every other racial and ethnic group in between, right? Or in between those two, like, disparate numbers. So when it comes to the point of the Black Home Initiative, and in which the idea for this bill partially originated, of course, the leadership of Representative Taylor and Representative Chop in this process cannot be understated, because they really quarterbacked this. But as a coalition, the goal is to be able to really move the needle on closing that home ownership gap, so we can start to see equity when it comes to generating parity when it comes to generating generational wealth in communities across Washington, as well as starting to anchor people who are at risk of displacement. And according to studies that have come from the city of Seattle, from King County, from Washington, that communities like Skyway and other multiracial communities are at the center of the displacement crisis. So increased home ownership, and particularly in King County, if we were to add 49,494 additional BIPOC homeowners, then we would be able to have BIPOC home ownership, meaning Black, Indigenous, and people of color home ownership total on parity with white home ownership. And that comes straight from that home ownership disparity study that I alluded to a second ago, that the Department of Commerce put out in 2022. And also, not to humble brag, but we encouraged that bill going forward as well. And when I say we, I'm talking about Habitat and also other members of the Black Home Initiative. But more to the point, that this program here, this is really going to transform things when we talk about these wealth gaps. Because for as Audrey mentioned, that a lot of the remedies to address housing issues are what we call race neutral. Or in other words, they don't take account race, and they don't take account all of the legacy of disenfranchisement, things like that, which on the face of it sounds good. But if we were to run a foot race and I shoot you in the leg and then say, hey, you know, come on, just compete against me, right? There's no fairness in that. So really what we're talking about is we're talking about making sure we fairly and in a balanced way repair the harm of the past. So unfortunately, I do not have any fancy slides for you, so my apologies. But I can talk a lot, as you can see. So I'd be open to any questions on implementation. Yes?
So, I have some people that would possibly qualify. So I have two questions. First question is, when you put out the information, how are they gonna find out about it? So I can give them a heads up.
Excellent. So I believe there were a series of links that you guys can make maybe available in a newsletter on the website, because organizations like the West Hill Community Association are going to be absolutely pivotal. And again, I want to say kudos to Adria, because I know Adria has a list of really hundreds of organizations, media organizations, community organizations, other civic organizations, in which she's reaching out to in order to do presentations like this. So a part of it's going to be word of mouth. A part of it's going to be we're going to make knock on wood. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know that one of the big discussions is reaching out to trusted messengers such as individuals in this room, as well as other entities, in order to make sure people understand that this program exists. And then also a big thing is, well, quite frankly, we're going to have to make sure that we're utilizing social media, that we're utilizing TV, all of those things. And again, I don't want to speak out of turn, because those last things are budgetary questions, but they will definitely be in the mix, you know, as options on the table. I think I saw I know a question here. See a question back there? Oh, well, yeah.
What types of documentation do you anticipate would be needed?
So honestly, I don't exactly know. We have to sort that out, and that's going to be a part of the conversation that the Oversight Board is going to have with the Washington Housing Finance Commission. Yes, because a big component of the study is going to be addressing the actual, the actual implementation of this. Like, how are we going to do this, and where are the different people who would benefit from this program, and of course the kind of intermediate sustainability of said program. Yes, I know you had a question, but I also saw a hand back here, so I'm going to hop back and forth. Yeah.
So I think this is all great, the redress is awesome. But how do we share the story? How do we share, like, Bill Boyne's developments for his employees were racially restricted? How do we inform the community, like, yeah, this is real, it happened, and this is why there's this program before? I think probably 90% of people don't know.
Of course.
Yeah, probably more, probably 95%.
So earlier there was some discussion about how to get these racially restrictive covenants removed if they're on the deed to your house. I say don't. I say leave it. Let it, obviously it's not legally enforceable, so good, yay. But that's a part of the conversation that we, you know, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like if it was on my deed, I'd certainly want to remove it. But having that history and having that evidence, and of course sharing it with the racially restrictive covenants research project, you know, it's important. But I think also what you're doing right now is a big part of alerting and really sharing those stories. Because I've been to their website, and I know the Covenants Project has a wonderful website. I encourage you all to take a look at it, educate yourselves. In fact, the Race and Labor Project at UW, I believe, their website is also very important. I've used it to teach my students as well. I appreciate you, Dub, doing gathering the resources for me. No, I'm joking. But yes, so definitely lean on those resources. And if you are an educator, I would simply suggest integrating them into your curriculum. And of course, I myself or either of the two other speakers, I'm sure would be happy to come present. So I saw a hand over here, then I'll come to you. Yeah.
So I have two things. One, I would suggest that once the program is ready, that you notify all of the real estate boards. Because if a realtor's aware of it, then they can say, hey, you know, did your parents live here in 1968? And you know, be able to broadcast it that way. And that makes it, that gives them more customers.
So I have a favor to ask of you. We actually do need a realtor to serve on the board. So, well, yeah. I mean, if you know of one, go to the governor's board. Excellent.
I am a realtor and I was on the board before, but now I hear this and
Well,
I want to say to all of you, we are getting continuous.
oh, excuse me, ma'am. Really quick. Oh, no, it's okay. Really quick, just to clarify, I meant the Covenant Homeownership Account Program Oversight Committee. So to have them, not this board, I meant we're looking for a realtor. There's a specific opening for a realtor and a mortgage professional, one who's practiced in Washington for the last 5 years on the Program Oversight Committee. So please, you can tell them to go to Governor's website, where there are board and committee vacancies. All they have to do is look up Covenant Homeownership Account Program. The vacancy is right there. They can apply. It's a very easy application. And yeah, so, you know, we would love to have someone with that perspective. And anyway, don't worry, I'll come back to you, but you had a second question.
My second question is, zero interest is great, but what is the term for paying it back? Because that can also affect their qualification if they've got to pay the down payment loan and the mortgage.
So I'll say three things. One, from my personal experience. So I've actually benefited personally from the Washington Housing Finance Commission's programs in the past for down payment assistance. And at least how it worked for me was that the down payment assistance essentially goes in as a part of what you have to pay back over time with your normal mortgage. Two, with how this is going to work, right now, I'm trying to remember, because right now I believe it would function in a similar way, but I don't know. I can, of course, get back to you, and if either the other presenters know exactly how it's going to be packaged with the mortgage, you know, they can answer. And then, well, we can get back to you. But the way the down payment assistance at least worked for me and my family, it was like that, so I presume it would be a similar thing where it would just be packaged as a part of that mortgage payment. And then the third thing I would say is that this, and making sure that it's as, how should I put this? Making sure that it is not punitive on the back end. And what I mean punitive on the back end is we want to make sure that people both can build equity over time as well as afford to stay in their homes. So we don't want to make something much, you know, a bit more expensive when we don't have to. And also, ideally, we would like to make it so the impact when it comes to paying this back is decreased. However, due to state law, we can't just give people money, right? So that's kind of where we're at. Again, that is part of an ongoing conversation, so I'm not going to say, oh, they will never have to, but it is definitely something that is in conversation. Yeah. Yes, and Miss?
Yeah, so a few people asked how are other people going to know about this new rule or measurement. And you mentioned social media representation, of course, and West Hill is already doing a real good job, I think, for us locally.
Yeah.
But then I also thought you mentioned TV and it meant that costs money. But have you considered reaching out to Crosscuts? Because that is such a good local touch base.
That is very much on the list that I know.
It would be so appropriate for this because it's a timely thing. If this is going to be launched in the summer, they're working on it now in the spring.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows? I don't know.
Oh, trust me, I'm right
Just
there
a
with you.
suggestion.
No, I'm right there with you. I like that suggestion. Thank you. And in fact, I know for a fact that that is on the list that Audrey and her team are working off of, and they've been really receptive to all of the links and the lists that we've had to share. So if you think, well, if you are moved by what you've seen here tonight and what you've learned, and I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel, great presentations all around, then I would say share it. Because really telling this story, and especially at this time in our history, is pivotal to making sure that this program succeeds, but also that we can prevent horrible policy from being passed potentially in the future. Awesome. Any other questions? Thoughts? Feels? All right, thank you.
Okay, so I just checked the weather. It is supposed to be snowing right now, so I want us to be able to wrap up so you all can get home and hopefully not need to deal with any inclement weather. So I just want to remind you of the upcoming events. This weekend, Saturday the 20th, restoration at Skyway Park from 9 to 12 p.m. Or you can go to Dead Horse Canyon. I know Jeff announced that. Community coffee hour at Skyway Library on the 17th of February, 11:30 to 1. And the program Melissa talked about, Protect Yourself from Fraud and Identity Theft, also at the library the same day, February 17th at 2 p.m. There is also a meeting tomorrow at Skyway Library from 6 to 7 p.m. to review ideas that were submitted for the participatory budget. We have 2 board members who are participating on the committee that oversees the participatory budget, but they want lots of public input and are looking for proposal advocates. And so just wanted to mention that and say thank you for coming this evening. Thank you to Principal Thompson for letting us use the space. And I know some folks have to wake up very early to make a decision about whether schools will be open tomorrow. So we will adjourn here. Thank you all for coming.